Well, just as they were back in January, the latest rallies are centred on Tahrir Square, otherwise known as Liberation Square. You can see some of the makeshift hospitals which have been set up in the area. Now, to the east, there is the Interior Ministry. Now, that building has been a target for protesters. And to get to that building, people occupied Mohammed Mahmoud Street, which was the site of the most violent clashes. Mike Hanna's on that road and has just filed this report.
It's along this road that much of the conflict has happened. The reason being, it is the road that leads to the Interior Ministry. The Interior Ministry has, in recent days and indeed weeks, become a focus of anger among the protesters, seen as just yet another branch, another arm of a military that all those here believe is attempting to hold on to power in the guise of guarding the democracy. The smell of tear gas still heavy in the air. Throughout the past 48 hours, there have been repeated rounds of tear gas fired here. It is a particularly virulent form, stinging the face to an immense extent. Many of those who've been killed are said to have died of asphyxiation. Medical workers that we've talked to say those who've been brought to the medical stations for treatment are in a very serious way indeed, suffering from symptoms which they've not seen before from tear gas inhalation. Questions now about what exactly is being used and why. These are the front lines while crowds continue to gather on Tahrir Square for what has been billed as yet another million-man march. But one player is not taking part on this day. The Muslim Brotherhood has not called on its followers to come to Tahrir Square with all the other protesters and political parties. That being said, it's expected that many members of the Muslim Brotherhood, particularly the smaller ones, are likely to attend despite the orders from their political masters. Once again, we see these tear gas canisters that have become a real point of anger. On this particular thing, it is a CS gas, which is made, and I'll show it to you very clearly, is made in the United States. Perhaps part of the military program, the $1 billion military program in which the US supplies Egypt with arms. $5. Ultimately, this is a make or break day in Egypt's democratic process. The elections are supposed to begin in less than 1 week's time. What happens over the next 24 hours could well determine whether the transition to democracy comes to a bitter and final end.